Our special news series, Saving Our Seas, dives into critical stories of conservation right off our California coastline. But there's perhaps no bigger predicament in the ocean here and around the globe than the growing plastic problem.
Yeah, with the help from our partners at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, KTLA's Andy Reesmeyer takes a deeper look at this compounding catastrophe and what, if anything, we can do about it.
Plastic. A versatile, moldable, durable, affordable invention revolutionizing modern life. Over the past century, humans have grown addicted to the pliable polymers, now producing some 400 million tons a year, up to half of that for single-use products, used just 10 minutes or less. At least 11 million tons of those plastics dump into our oceans every year, drifting into floating islands and drowning out the creatures that call them home. Experts estimate there are 21,000 pieces of ocean plastic for every person on Earth.
What's become clear is that we're producing too much plastic in general, and the ultimate sink is our ocean. It is definitely overwhelming the system.
Margaret Spring is the Chief Conservation and Science Officer at Monterey Bay Aquarium. She recently returned from a summit of the Global Plastics Treaty in Korea.
175 plus countries agreed to negotiate a treaty to end plastic pollution, which is great news. The discussion is how, and that's where we are.
The binding international agreement aims to end plastic pollution, addressing every stage of its life cycle: production, design, and disposal.
We can't assume we can keep recycling or landfilling our way out of this problem with the production going up. It means we've got to really work together.
Only about 9% of plastics get recycled worldwide. In the U.S., it's closer to 5%.
People in the United States might not notice because we have a landfilling system. So it's sort of out of sight, out of mind.
But many island nations aren't so lucky.
You see how vulnerable some of these countries are. They're not the producers of plastic, they're the receivers of plastic, and they're drowning in it.
And it's not just the plastic waste that's worrisome. It's also the chemical compositions that create it.
Plastic has become a kind of a chemical delivery system, unfortunately.
Plastic doesn't biodegrade. Instead, it breaks down into microplastics over millennia, leaching harmful chemicals into the soil, the water, and into our food chain.
If you've ever seen marine snow when you're down in the ocean, those little pieces are things that animals eat. Microplastics look a lot like that, and so they'll be eating that instead of food.
But it's not just sea creatures suffocating in synthetics.
I would say human health is part of the plastics crisis.
In fact, a new study just published in the journal Nature found microplastics in human brains, spiking 50% in just the last 8 years.
On the face of it, that's high.
The study's co-lead author, Dr. Matthew Campen, professor of pharmaceutical sciences at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, discovered a spoonful of surprise.
When you take our numbers from the mass spectrometry, it comes out to about 7 grams of plastic in the brain, which is approximately the weight of a plastic spoon. And I went and just grabbed a plastic spoon and put it on the scale. I was like, well, wow.
A startling revelation.
If these numbers are correct, the brain would be 99.5% brain and 0.5% plastic.
So what could all that plastic inside of us be doing?
We worry that there's some things it's already doing, and we just haven't realized it, like fertility, especially sperm counts, women's health, cancer rates for certain things are increasing over time that are not explained, and of course, neurological diseases.
And this compounding crisis might be closer to home than just the coastline.
We come to this from the standpoint of this is an ocean problem, but the reality may be that we've been throwing our plastics away into landfills for 6-7 decades now. And it might be that we've just not seen it because it's in groundwater and it's in the rivers,
leading to the livestock and land animals that drink it.
We know this is a ticking clock, but we don't know what's going to happen or when. And that actually adds to my anxiety about it.
So what, if anything, can we do?
Our best advice at this point is to limit the intake of meats and just eat a healthy diet is still the best advice we can give.
And recognize we have the power to protect this planet from the perils of plastic.
We've dealt with it with asbestos or other things. We know they're bad. Now, how do we get it out of the system? We don't want to think about this as something we don't know how to do. We do know how to do it, It's a bigger problem than we had anticipated having to deal with at this moment, but we can use these same great legal tools and policy tools you can use right now that we use to fight pollution in every way.
To learn what you can do to help, visit our partners at MontereyBayAquarium.org and click on Act for the Ocean. And stay tuned next weekend for part 2 of Compounding Catastrophe to see how leaders, legislators, and innovators in California and across the country are taking action now, shaping the solution to the plastic problem. That will air right here next Saturday morning, and you can of course catch the full series anytime at ktla.com/SOS.
Thank you to Andy for that report. And joining us now is our executive producer, who is also the force behind this new series, Jake Burge. Thank you so much for being here, Jake.
Hi guys, thank you. I'm so excited
out from
to
the
be
control
here.
room
Right,
to
coming
be
out
with
to
us.
say hi.
And this is a real important cause. What was the motivation behind doing this series?
You know, I'm so excited. It's taken me about 4 years to get this off the ground. It's really been a passion project. But now, thanks to our partners at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, we're finally getting it off the ground, which is exciting. Yeah. But I love the ocean. It's all about ocean conservation, you know, saving our seas. But it's also SOS, because we're sending out the alert. You know, there are things happening off California's critical coastline that you need to know about. So we want people to be informed about what's happening. We want them to be invested in why it matters, like you just saw, for their families and themselves. And we want them to be inspired to get involved, because there's always something you can do.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard a lot about microplastics. I hadn't heard the research on the microplastics found in the brain. That is stressful. And like he said about his anxiety going up, I was feeling it as I was hearing more and more about the study. So what is to come in this series?
Well, we got a lot of good stuff to come. Next week is part 2, where we're really shaping the solution to the problem that we just saw. We've also been working with Monterey Bay Aquarium. They have this incredible sea otter surrogacy program that sounds as cute as it sounds. And we're going to dive into that. We're working with the Aquarium of the Pacific. They have a program for white abalone, which were almost fished to extinction, to revitalize their populations. And then we also been working with Cal State University Shark Lab. They have an incredible program where they're tagging our sharks off our coast and trying to keep swimmers and surfers safe. Yeah. So a lot to come.
Oh, we can't wait, Jake.
Thank you, Jake. A passion project coming to life. Here we go.
I know you've worked hard on it, so I'm glad that we're giving it all the time. Okay, remember, you can catch up on the full series anytime at ktla.com/SOS and follow KTLA Saving Our Seas on Instagram. Don't miss part 2, like Jake mentioned, of Compounding Catastrophe. It'll air right here next weekend.